Bro, check this out. I just want to make autopilot millions so I can live on the beach. How fucking cool would that be?
But yeah, bro, it's kind of your offer.
I get it. So you're saying the problem is my niche, bitch?
That's not what I said at all.
You know what? I'm gonna go do plumbers.
What are you gonna work with, Mario? Let's go!
No, you know what, bro? I'm gonna do dentists. Dentists are rich as fucking teeth.
Bro, you definitely look like you need a dentist.
No, actually, check this out. We're gonna do e-commerce. Grandmas are buying tons of shit online.
What do you think, you're gonna get rich knitting grandma's socks?
Oh, you know what? Online coaches. I'm gonna do online coaching.
Good coaches need consistency, just saying.
I get what you're saying. I need to change niches every 30 days until I find this super secret niche that's got all the money.
Why do I bother? Why?
What's up, guys? It's Frankie here. Today we're going to be talking about it ain't your niche, bro. I hear this all the time where people think they're looking for a niche that has some super secret source of money. And I want to show you guys what you're actually doing within a niche, why a niche, and how to identify when it's time to change it. And more often than not, by the way, it's not time to change. And it's not why people think it is. So for those of you guys who don't know me already, my name's Frankie Finn. I wrote this best-selling book on Amazon. I also built 3 of my own agencies up to baller status and have helped thousands of people worldwide to live this more beach, less laptop style. And let's get into fixing your niche when it ain't working for you. All right. So let's start by talking about perhaps the single most important misunderstood thing about a niche, and that is that all high-ticket sales are a process and not an event. So what do I mean by that? Say I saw a pretty girl on the street and I wanted to marry her, I wanted to get in her pants, something like that. Well, the act of doing that is a process. It's not like, hey, I just show up and say, here's my penis, let's go, right? Let's go get married. Although it's pretty impressive. She might actually go for that. But in general, it's actually going to be a process. In fact, we're first probably going to have a conversation. Then we might have a little back and forth. Then we might go on a date. We might start texting each other. We might start regularly dating. We might sleep together. And eventually, after a few years, we would get married. But that is a process. And so if somebody is going up to a stranger on the street and looking for them to instantly get married, they're only going to be disappointed. And I'll tell you, what is the average process time for agency services? And the answer is 45 days. That means the average client will buy from you in a month and a half. Now, most people go into a niche sending one message and going, I sent 10 dentist messages, none of these motherfuckers buy. And the reality is, all you have done is start the process, okay? So I consider this, I got a garden behind me. You guys can't see me, you can't see it, but you'll have to take my word for it. And I got to learn how to garden in the last 2 years. Well, you put a tomato seed in the ground and then you water it, and after a couple of days, this is all you got, right? But if you continuously water it, what happens is over like 45 days, all of a sudden you get tons of tomatoes. So this is how all high ticket sales work. And the bigger the purchase, the longer they take to decide. And the smaller the purchase, like, if you're just buying a chocolate bar at the store, that's an impulse buy. You can make that decision in 4.5 seconds. But the ultimate example of this is somebody buys a house, okay? If somebody buys a house, they may first start checking on, like, I wonder how much we could get for our house. And then they may start going, like, I wonder which neighborhoods we might live in. And then they might drive around and look at the neighborhood. And then they may check out an open house. They may go talk to a mortgage broker and check out some rates. They may go talk to a real estate agent. They may look at some houses. And then they may sign a contract. And again, that process takes 6 months. Now, if you compare that to how the average real estate agent operates, most of them don't close deals because they don't have 6 months of nurture built in. Well, I'm here to tell you guys, the vast majority of people switch niches because they're trying to go from I just met you to buy my shit in a single message or in a single ad instead of just engaging in a 45-day process, which is what it actually takes in the real world. Now, does that mean if you put up an ad, somebody won't buy right away? It happens. But we just actually had a guy in our mastermind today celebrated that he closed the lead that he had been talking to for 1 year, right? So sometimes this process is even longer. So your job, by the way, is to continuously water. But I want to share that with you because if you go in with the expectation of looking for an event, thinking there's some magic message that's going to make you like win the lottery, you will not engage the 45-day process that's required, and you won't get the clients, and it'll feel like my niche is broken, which leads to my second point, is that every niche has their own secret language, okay? So you guys are watching this. if I say PPC or pay-per-click or SEO or search engine optimization, you guys know what I mean. But I promise you, if my mom was sitting at the dinner table or my brother, they'd go, what the fuck are these guys talking about? What the fuck is SEO? What is PPC? What is a WordPress website, right? So every niche has this. Every niche has a secret language. A dentist will talk about implants and their patients. A lawyer will talk about, I need to do a brief or file a motion, right? A construction contractor may say, I want category 3 flood jobs, right? So we say this because every niche has a secret language. And every time you start over in a new niche, you get a new language to learn. And so half the battle is just learning to talk like them. So I saw, like, for example, somebody sent me an outreach message they sent the other day that was not working, and they messaged a dentist and said, I can get you more customers. Well, does a dentist call his people customers? Or does he call them patients, right? So the minute you say, I can get you customers, he already knows you're full of shit, right? So another part of the battle that you have to learn is, this usually takes, by the way, about 6 months to really learn your industry's language. So you talk like one of them. In fact, you'll know you have this right. I can remember a few times I've spoken at attorney conferences and I walk off stage and people say, Frankie, how long have you been practicing law? And I'm like, law? Like, I'm just an internet degenerate who sells stupid shit on the internet, right? So when you get the language right, they will think you're one of them and you understand them. But often you're just repeating the things they've said to you. Like, for example, when I got into the 90-day challenge for the restoration industry, which is a project I did where I showed people how to build a brand new agency and a brand new niche, and we chose the restoration agency. In the beginning, they would talk about like TPA jobs and category 3 and different insurance companies. It was like, again, I didn't understand the language, but once you got to understand it, you can talk like one of them and you can actually say something meaningful. Okay, third piece is, this is a misunderstood thing. And again, shout out to my friend Dave Miz. 20 years ago, Dave had a product called Insider Internet Dating. He was the first guy I knew who was really successful on the internet. Ergo, I studied everything Dave did. And Dave was, in his product, Insider Internet Dating, there was a very, very popular thing in the early days of internet marketing. Is people were looking for, or in that space, specifically in the pickup game, and that was the magic pickup line. What's the line I'm going to say that is going to get all the girls? And here's the truth. If you're not a moron, there ain't no magic line. There's the line, right? There's no one line you're going to say that's going to work on everything. But what doesn't go out of style is real relationships. And real relationships are built with repetition over time. Okay? So again, just like watering a plant, most people are not engaging the 45 days. They're sending one message or posting one ad. And what happens is, by the way, it's not that people are saying no to you here. They actually may have their interest peak, but they're not ready to hurl a credit card at you. Just like when a girl sees you and you smile and you have a nice conversation, she's not always ready to jump into bed with you. Or a guy, or whatever you're into. I know you guys are into some weird shit. A couple of you guys got OnlyFans accounts. No judgment. Nothing but shenanigans. Woo! So you really want to think about this process like you're building real relationships, because you are, right? So the more you think about what would work in a real relationship, and usually the more you continuously add value to somebody over 45 days, and usually the easiest way to add value to keep somebody interested in 45 days is think about information as free and implementation as money. So you give them ideas. So like if I was doing this for a plumber, I would show plumbers, and say I did SEO, I would show plumbers how they can rank, how they can get Google leads, what they need to get for reviews, what Google is looking for in them, and give them all sorts of information for free, knowing that when they need help implementing it, I'm set up as the position to do it. But these are real relationships. They more often than not require repetition. So the minute you're looking for, how do I make the sale in a single leap and bound? It's like if you think about this as an American football field. And I say American because some of you guys are in countries all over. But usually winning football is just continuously moving the ball up the field and not turning the ball over. And there's a play that, if for those of you guys who are not football fans, where you do at the end of the game called a Hail Mary. And it's where everybody runs straight and you try and get a touchdown in one play. Right? And you basically only use it when the game is out of reach and it's a one last-ditch effort and we only got time for one play, or end of the half or end of the game. And what happens is most people are trying to constantly throw a Hail Mary, and so they conclude when their Hail Marys aren't landing, it's their niche. But what you actually need to be focused on is, how can I continuously move the ball forwards over 45 days? And what will happen is you'll be begin to score touchdowns. And by the way, you get paid the same money if it takes 10 touches to convert somebody as one, but I'll tell you, it's a lot more predictable to do it in 10 touches than it is in one. All right, so here's a question people ask me a lot, like, which niche, Frankie, is the secret niche with all the money? Okay? And I'm here to tell you, you got the wrong idea about what a niche is and why you should pick one. Because the truth is, if there's a niche at all, somebody's making money. Somebody, right? And also, somebody's not making money. In fact, if you could look at the vast majority of people in any niche, about 60, 70, 80% of them are broke. Like, take real estate agents. It's a very low barrier to entry to become a real estate agent. Like 80, 90% of real estate agents are broke and don't make it. Like, welcome to being a real estate agent. It's a harsh reality, right? So I want you guys to think about, regardless of which niche you go in, niche, if we want to use the real French word, we're actually aiming for the top 10%, okay? So that means if you could get 10 dentists in a room and look at them as prospective clients, you would actually only want one of them, and you'd want the one who spends the most money. Now, this is counterintuitive because a lot of times people think I should work with broke, struggling people in my niche, get some practice, and then I'll work with the top 10%. And that's like thinking, I'm going to date 6 or 7 crackheads in a row, and then I'll date the prom queen. Doesn't work like that. You got to date the prom queen on day one. And actually, believe it or not, the top 10% have all the problems, and they're willing to pay the most money for it. An example of this, when I used to work with a lot of the top personal injury attorneys, I still got a few of them that I consult with and different things like that. But what I would find is, if they were managing like 20, 30 things. So like, take, for example, a lot of these guys are advertising on TV. Well, they'd spend $1 million a month on TV. They'd have to buy media, right? Like, they have to like contact different stations and negotiate prices and talk to a person. They got to do 30, 40 different creatives because you can't just use the same TV commercial over and over. They got to edit it. They got to record it. They got to film it. They got to get a custom number. They got to get a jingle. They got to get the graphics done. That's just one media. And then they're also doing pay-per-click and SEO and blah, blah, blah. Ergo, they got more problems and they're more willing to spend money. So I don't want you to think about your niche as I'm going after yoga studio owners, but rather I'm going after the top 10% of yoga studio owners. And I don't want you to think about it as I'm going after dentists. Rather, I'm going after the top 10% of dentists. Or I don't want you to think I'm going after e-commerce. Rather, I'm going after the top 10% of e-commerce. And this is what you'll find is why, if your niche seems broke, almost always it's because you're solving problems for broke people. You're solving broke people problems for broke people in your industry, and it ain't your niche. You're just working with the wrong people in your niche. Because in reality, a niche is more like a spectrum, right? There are lawyers, for example, that have $500 million a year law firms, and there are lawyers who are still trying to get their first client, right? Which one of those do you think is more going to pay you? The one who's got 25, 30 locations, or the one who's just trying to get anybody in the door and doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together? This is true in every industry, including yours. The real reason to pick a niche, by the way, is because it makes scaling a lot easier, because what works for one dentist works for another dentist, works for another dentist, and you get to reuse the things that have worked again and again and again, rather than constantly having to reinvent the wheel. And I always say there's a hidden metric in this, which is called energy, and it's less energy to do the same thing again and again, and it actually creates happier clients. Let's talk about the last piece. How do you know when it's time to change niches? Well, I'll tell you. This is the amount of time you should actually commit to a niche. It's at least 6 to 12 months. And the only reason you should change, I'll give you 2 reasons actually. Reason number 1 that you should change is because you're in an industry and there are a few of these that are broken. And usually they are broken because they're regulated by insurance. So for example, I wouldn't work with general practice doctors because they don't really advertise. And the same is true of, say, like insurance agents. You can buy it on Geico. But there's only a small percentage of niches that fit that description. Chances are the niche you've considered doing, and by the way, this is an important detail, business got endless problems, right? So even, a lot of times people think, is my niche too crowded? One problem solved creates another. You can experience this in an agency, by the way. In the beginning, you got no clients, so you go get some clients. Now you got a new problem called fulfillment. And then eventually, if you get really good at fulfillment, you get really good at selling it, eventually you'll have a new problem called, I got to hire people. And then you'll have a new problem after that called, I have to manage people. Right? So the problems are endless. So I don't want you to think about a niche as like it's too saturated. It's only too saturated if you're selling the same thing to the same people in the same way. So you always have to find little gaps in the marketplace. But that doesn't happen if you don't commit for at least 6 to 12 months. Now, the second reason to switch is Not if you have a broken niche, but actually if you have decided there is a different group of people that you love more and would rather serve more and move towards. For example, part of the reason I started serving agency owners is because I just fucking love you guys to death. It's just a fact. It's just how it is for me. And I love that you guys also believe in freedom. Only the greatest movie ever made. If you disagree with me, it's because you're an asshole. No, I'm just kidding. You're allowed to have opinions other than mine. Anyway, so I want you guys to think about, if you're going to commit to a niche, it's not about like changing every 30 days. It's committing for 6 to 12 months, because if you don't, you start this process over and you have to learn their secret language again. And all those relationships you're building go back to zero and reset. And you have to, again, identify the top 10% of people. Rather, if you commit for 6 to 12 months, just like a garden, what most people do, by the way, is they put out a piece of content, an ad or an offer, and because the ball moved 10 yards up the field, but you don't score any points for moving up 10 yards, they go, it's not working. And they don't see that unseen movement forward. It's kind of like when you're growing tomatoes, by the way. As a new gardener, this is what happens. You water your tomatoes, and you get a little sprout. And then you water it, and at least once or twice in there, you think, I don't really think this is working. I've never gardened before, but it doesn't really seem like, I don't see how that's going to turn into a tomato. And you just keep going and keep going. And again, it's this unseen movement towards a goal. And then eventually, if you continue that for long enough and you engage the process, you eventually have a new conversation going called, what the fuck are we going to do with all these tomatoes? And the only way you guys get to what the fuck are we going to do with all these tomatoes is if you commit for 6 to 12 months to a niche and continuously move the ball forward and build real relationships and continue that, right? So I used to experience this, by the way, and this happens in unseen ways. So like in the beginning, like when we started running Facebook ads to attorneys, like I kid you not, nothing fucking worked. But in the unseen way, the ball was moving forwards. And after about 6 months of continuously advertising to the same people, what I found is all my ads worked. And there were 2 reasons for that. Reason number 1 is that we got better at speaking their secret language, right? Like we actually, as we talked to more and more of them, we understood their language, we refined our ads, they got better over time. But the actual bigger reason, by the way, is because repetition created real relationships. The fact that they had been seeing our ads over and over for 6 months meant that ad number 12 worked even better than ad number 11, and ad 13 worked better than ad 12. And there was a cumulative effect that wasn't easy to measure in the beginning. What happens is, if you start over and constantly hop niches every 30 days, you never get any real momentum, and you constantly start over. And just so you know, agency growth, by the way, this is how a job grows. I guess I don't really have a lot of room, but a job is like a linear thing, right? You want to make money? Like my highest paying job, I think I got like $30 an hour. It was like plus or minus $1 or something like that. If I wanted to make another $30, you got to work another hour. You want to make another $30, work another hour. It's very linear, right? More time equals. Well, I promise you, agency growth is more like this. It's basically like a lot of zero and then hockey stick growth. And then what happens is you'll often plateau here, and then you'll see hockey stick growth. And it's not a straight line by any means. But what I want to show you is that often when you're putting in your dues, building those relationships, you don't get paid anything for it. And yet when they flower, you will have a new conversation again. Like, what do we do with all these tomatoes? So I say this to you guys because too many people in our industry are trying to go from cold to sold in a single message. They're not engaging the process. They're not learning their people's language. They're not building real relationships. And they're not even talking to the right people in the industry. And then they go, it's my niche, man. It's dentists. They're just too crowded. Too many people working with dentists. And I'm here to tell you, ain't your niche, Brozilla. Ain't your motherfucking niche. So I hope that helps you guys to dial this process in, to understand like the real journey of what it actually takes. And that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe. You can get some corny dad jokes and huge muscles. Much love, and may the force be with you.
Hey guys, if you like this video, you may also like my best-selling book here, Beyond the Agency Box. It is all about scaling a digital marketing agency while eliminating meetings and phone calls. We actually sell our stuff phoneless. We don't have any client meetings, and we also hire our team entirely without meeting phone calls, which allows us to, you know, like actually kind of live a life. I've laid out the entire blueprint in everything you need to know, getting clients, onboarding, setting expectations, scaling, building a team, you name it. It has been a bestseller. on Amazon now for over 5 straight years, but now you can get it even cheaper than you can get it on Amazon. So I can't tell you the exact price because it may change when this video is released, but there should be a link to it below, either in the description of the video or as well as a pinned comment. So if you're interested in that, check out that video and you can get a copy for super cheap.